All right, let's go.
Number 15, the twin study, the most controlled human experiment ever conducted. Scott Kelly spent 340 days on the International Space Station from March 2015 to March 2016. His identical brother Mark Kelly stayed on Earth. Same genetics, same upbringing, same baseline biology, one in space, one on the ground. A controlled experiment that could not be designed more perfectly if you tried. The results, published in Science in 2019, were extraordinary. Scott's gene expression changed. Over 200 genes showed altered activity compared to Mark's. His telomeres, the protective caps on chromosomes associated with aging, actually lengthened during spaceflight, then rapidly shortened after return. His gut microbiome shifted dramatically. His cognitive performance showed measurable decline on certain tasks. His vision degraded from increased intracranial pressure, a condition now called spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome, affecting a significant percentage of long-duration astronauts. Most changes reversed after Scott returned to Earth. Some did not fully reverse even after years. This was not just a space medicine study. It was the most comprehensive, simultaneous biological comparison of two genetically identical humans ever conducted in the history of science. The kind of study that, in any other context, would be considered impossible. It was only possible because of the space station and because two brothers were willing to be separated for nearly a year, one of them floating 400 kilometers above the other. Number 14. Cold Atom Laboratory, the coldest place in the known universe. The Cold Atom Laboratory installed on the ISS in 2018 holds a record that sounds impossible. It produces temperatures below 100 picokelvin, 1/10 billionth of a degree above absolute zero, colder than deep space, which sits at around 2.7 Kelvin, the coldest known temperatures anywhere in the universe, produced in a microwave oven-sized box on a space station traveling at 28,000 kilometers per hour. On Earth, cold atom experiments are severely limited by gravity. Even at temperatures billionths of a degree above absolute zero, atom clouds fall. They fall down and spread and hit the walls of the apparatus within milliseconds, too fast for meaningful experiments. In microgravity, atom clouds float. They can be held in place for seconds, 10 times longer than the best Earth-based experiments, long enough to observe quantum phenomena that are completely inaccessible in any ground laboratory. The Cold Atom Laboratory has produced Bose-Einstein condensates in microgravity, quantum states where thousands of atoms behave as a single quantum object. It has performed atom interferometry experiments that test the equivalence principle, the foundation of general relativity, at quantum scales. It has observed bubble-shaped Bose-Einstein condensates, a geometry impossible to maintain against gravity on Earth, that provide new ways to study quantum many-body physics. Every result is from territory that has never been experimentally accessible before. The coldest place in the known universe is not deep space. It is a box on the ISS. Number 13. Protein crystal growth. Medicines designed in space. Proteins are the machines of biology. Every enzyme, every antibody, every receptor, every structural component of every cell is a protein. Understanding how a protein works means understanding its three-dimensional structure at atomic resolution. The technique for determining protein structure is X-ray crystallography. Shine X-rays through a protein crystal and analyze the diffraction pattern to reconstruct the three-dimensional molecular architecture. The better the crystal, the better the data, the better the structure. The problem is gravity. On Earth, convection currents and sedimentation distort protein crystals as they grow. The result is imperfect crystals with defects and disorder that limit the resolution of structural data. In microgravity, proteins crystallize in the absence of convection. The crystals that form are larger, more ordered, and more perfect than anything achievable on Earth. The structural data obtained from them is correspondingly more detailed. Proteins that have resisted structural determination for decades on Earth have been solved using crystals grown on the ISS. The structure of a key protein involved in Duchenne muscular dystrophy was solved using ISS-grown crystals. Proteins related to cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and antibiotic-resistant bacteria have been structurally characterized using space-grown crystals. Drug design begins with structure. Know the exact shape of a protein, and you can design a molecule that fits into it precisely, blocking it or activating it with minimal side effects. Medicines in clinical use right now owe their design to structural data obtained from protein crystals grown on the International Space Station. Number 12. Cancer cells in microgravity. Three-dimensional tumors that actually behave like tumors. Most cancer research on Earth uses cell cultures, cells grown in flat two-dimensional layers on the bottom of plastic dishes. These cultures are convenient, reproducible, and have produced enormous amounts of useful data. They are also profoundly unnatural. Cells in the human body exist in three-dimensional environments. They are surrounded by other cells above, below, and on all sides. They experience mechanical forces in all directions. They communicate with neighboring cells in all directions. A flat two-dimensional layer shares almost none of these properties with cells in an actual tumor. In microgravity, cancer cells spontaneously form three-dimensional spheroids, compact round clusters that structurally and behaviorally resemble actual tumors far more closely than any two-dimensional culture. They develop similar oxygen gradients. They show similar drug resistance patterns. They communicate in similar ways. Drug testing on ISS-grown spheroids produce results that are significantly better predictors of how drugs will perform in actual patients than results from standard flat cultures. Drugs that appear effective in flat cultures but fail in patients, a major source of expensive late-stage clinical trial failures, show their failure earlier and more reliably when tested against three-dimensional spheroids grown in microgravity. The ISS has been used to grow spheroids from breast cancer cells, prostate cancer cells, ovarian cancer cells, and thyroid cancer cells. The data from these experiments is actively informing drug development programs running right now in 2026. Number 11. Flame behavior, the fire that should not exist. Fire on the ISS is a serious safety concern and also an extraordinary scientific opportunity. In microgravity, flames burn completely differently. On Earth, hot combustion gases rise by convection, drawing fresh oxygen in from below and expelling exhaust upward. This convective flow shapes the flame into a familiar teardrop and drives the combustion chemistry. In microgravity, there is no convection. Flames form perfect spheres. Oxygen reaches the flame purely by diffusion, a much slower process. The combustion chemistry runs at lower temperatures along different reaction pathways. The ISS combustion experiments, conducted in sealed chambers in the combustion integrated rack, have discovered phenomena that simply do not exist in Earth-based combustion research. Cool flames. Combustion reactions running at temperatures between 400 and 700 degrees Celsius, well below the threshold for visible light emission. These flames are invisible. They produce no soot. They run on completely different chemical pathways from normal combustion. They were theoretically predicted but had never been directly observed until the ISS experiments demonstrated them. Cool flame combustion may represent a more efficient, cleaner combustion regime for internal combustion engines. Homogeneous charge compression ignition engines, a technology being developed by automotive manufacturers, operate on chemistry related to cool flame combustion. The ISS data is directly informing the development of engine technologies that could significantly reduce fuel consumption and emissions. Fire in space is teaching us how to burn fuel more efficiently on Earth. Number 10. Alpha magnetic spectrometer, the dark matter detector in orbit. The Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, AMS-02, is a particle physics detector the size of a small car bolted to the exterior of the ISS. It has been operating continuously since May 2011. It is the most sophisticated scientific instrument ever operated in space. A permanent magnet, a time-of-flight system, a transition radiation detector, a ring imaging Cherenkov detector, a calorimeter. Together, they identify and measure individual cosmic ray particles, their charge, their energy, their mass, their direction, with unprecedented precision. As of May 2026, AMS-02 has detected and analyzed over 200 billion cosmic ray events. The most significant finding, an unexpected excess of positrons in cosmic rays at energies above 10 GeV that does not match predictions from known astrophysical sources. Positrons at these energies should come primarily from collisions between cosmic ray protons and interstellar gas. The observed excess is too large for this explanation. The excess is consistent, tantalizingly, with the annihilation of dark matter particles into electron-positron pairs. This is not a confirmed dark matter detection. There are astrophysical explanations. Nearby pulsars could produce the excess, but the AMS-02 data has constrained the properties of potential dark matter particles more tightly than any previous experiment. It has eliminated large regions of parameter space that theorists had considered viable. AMS-02 is the only large-scale magnetic spectrometer ever operated above Earth's atmosphere. The magnetic field required to bend cosmic ray trajectories enough for mass identification cannot be operated on the ground. It would interfere with everything. It requires space. It requires the ISS as its platform. Number 9. NICER, measuring the densest matter in the observable universe. NICER, the Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer, has been mounted on the ISS exterior since June 2017. It measures X-ray pulses from neutron stars with microsecond timing precision. Neutron stars are the densest directly observable objects in the universe. A teaspoon of neutron star material weighs approximately 1 billion tons. Their interiors contain matter compressed to densities exceeding that of an atomic nucleus, a regime of physics that cannot be produced in any Earth-based laboratory at any scale. The only way to study matter at these densities is to observe neutron stars directly. NICER does this by timing the X-ray pulses emitted from hotspots on rotating neutron stars with extraordinary precision. The shape of the pulse, how the X-ray brightness varies as the hotspot rotates in and out of view, encodes information about the size and shape of the star. And the size and shape of the star constrains the equation of state of the ultra-dense matter in its interior. NICER has measured the mass and radius of multiple neutron stars with the highest precision ever achieved. These measurements have ruled out entire classes of theoretical models for the equation of state of dense nuclear matter. They have constrained the properties of the hypothetical quark matter that may exist in neutron star cores. The ISS orbital environment is essential. NICER needs to observe the same neutron stars continuously for extended periods, following them across the sky as the station orbits. The ISS continuous power supply and its ability to point instruments at targets anywhere in the sky that is not blocked by the station itself makes this possible. Dense nuclear matter studied from a space station, physics that cannot be produced in any Earth-based laboratory accessed by watching dead stars pulse in X-rays. Number 8. ECOSTRESS, predicting crop failures from space before they happen. ECOSTRESS, the Ecosystem Spaceborne Thermal Radiometer experiment on Space Station, has been operating on the ISS since 2018. It measures the surface temperature of Earth's plant life from orbit with unprecedented spatial resolution and temporal frequency. Plants regulate their temperature through transpiration, releasing water vapor through their leaves. When plants are stressed from drought, heat, disease, or water shortage, their transpiration changes and their surface temperature shifts. ECOSTRESS detects these temperature changes before they become visible to other instruments, before the plants turn brown, before yield losses become apparent on the ground, weeks before a crop failure becomes obvious on the ground. The ISS orbital inclination of 51.6 degrees means ECOSTRESS passes over the same agricultural regions multiple times per day at different times. This temporal frequency is not achievable with any dedicated Earth observation satellite in polar orbit. They pass over the same point at the same local time every orbit. ECOSTRESS captures the diurnal cycle of plant stress, how it varies through the day, which is critical for distinguishing different types of stress and for calibrating the measurements. As of May 2026, ECOSTRESS data is being used operationally by agricultural agencies in the United States, Australia, and Europe to monitor crop stress and allocate irrigation resources. It has detected coral bleaching events in the Great Barrier Reef before visual surveys confirmed them. It has mapped urban heat islands with a resolution that reveals individual city blocks. A thermometer on the ISS is predicting which farms will fail before the farmers know. Number 7. Water recycling system, the technology that will take us to Mars. The ISS water recovery system has been operating continuously since 2008. It recovers water from urine, humidity condensation from breathing, and other sources, recycling approximately 90 to 93% of all water on the station. This is not a demonstration system, it is the primary water supply for the crew. Every astronaut on the ISS drinks water that was recently urined. They know this. They drink it anyway because the alternative is running out of water 400 kilometers above the nearest resupply. The system uses a urine processing assembly that distills urine under vacuum. The low pressure allows water to vaporize at lower temperatures, reducing energy requirements. The resulting water then passes through a water processing assembly, using chemical oxidation and filtration to remove contaminants. The output meets drinking water standards. Getting from 90% to 95% recovery efficiency, the level required for a Mars mission where resupply is impossible, has been the focus of ongoing development on the ISS. In 2023, NASA demonstrated a modified system, achieving over 98% water recovery, processing urine and sweat into drinking water with unprecedented efficiency. This technology is not just for space. The water recycling systems developed for the ISS are being adopted for use in water-scarce regions on Earth. The filtration and purification techniques refined over 18 years of continuous operation in the harshest environment ever inhabited by humans are directly applicable to humanitarian water treatment challenges. The water system that keeps 6 people alive in space is the prototype for the system that will keep people alive on Mars. Number 6. Plant growth in space. Food for the journey to another world. Growing food in space is not optional. A Mars mission takes 6 to 9 months one way. The return journey takes the same. Crew cannot carry all their food. They must grow some of it. The ISS plant growth experiments, using the Veggie facility and the Advanced Plant Habitat, are the only source of real data on growing food and microgravity over extended periods. Lettuce, radishes, mustard greens, kale, and wheat have all been successfully grown and eaten by astronauts on the ISS. Each crop reveals unique challenges. Roots in microgravity do not know which direction to grow. They follow water and oxygen gradients rather than gravity. Water delivery to roots requires specially designed porous clay growth media. Lighting must substitute for natural photoperiods. Plant diseases spread differently in a closed microgravity environment. The Advanced Plant Habitat is the most sophisticated plant growth chamber ever flown in space. It has over 180 sensors monitoring temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide, oxygen levels, and LED lighting. It has produced multiple generations of crops and has demonstrated that plants can complete their full life cycle from seed to seed in space. This last point is critical. For a truly long-duration mission beyond Mars, seeds from harvested plants must be viable for the next generation of crops. The ISS has confirmed that this is possible. Every lesson learned from every plant that has grown on the ISS is a lesson that will feed the first humans to walk on Mars. Number 5. 3D printing in space. Manufacturing beyond Earth. Every component of the ISS was launched from Earth. Every replacement part, every tool, every piece of equipment that has ever broken and needed replacement had to be launched from Earth. at a cost of approximately $54,000 per kilogram to low Earth orbit. The Made in Space experiments beginning in 2014 with the first 3D printer in space have been working to change this fundamental constraint. The first object ever manufactured in space was a replacement part for the printer itself, printed immediately after installation as a demonstration. Since then, hundreds of objects have been printed on the ISS: tools, structural components, medical devices, experimental equipment. Material properties of objects printed in microgravity differ from those printed on Earth. Without gravity-driven convection during cooling, the microstructure of polymers is more uniform, in some cases producing stronger, more consistent parts than Earth-printed equivalents. In other cases, microgravity printing reveals unexpected weaknesses that ground testing would not have predicted. The Refabricator, a combined recycler and 3D printer launched to the ISS in 2018, demonstrated closed-loop manufacturing. Plastic items no longer needed are melted down and recycled into feedstock for printing new items. Manufacturing and recycling in a closed loop with no net consumption of material. For a mission to Mars, manufacturing capability is not a luxury, it is survival. A broken component 400 million kilometers from Earth cannot be resupplied. The ISS is the only place where in-space manufacturing has been tested at operational scale over extended periods. Every print, every material test, every recycling cycle is data that does not exist anywhere else. Number 4. Radiation monitoring. Protecting every future astronaut. The ISS sits above Earth's protective atmosphere and partially above its magnetic fields at 400 kilometers. The radiation environment is significantly more intense than the surface. Astronauts on the ISS receive radiation doses approximately 10 times higher than people on the ground. This is not incidental. It is the point. Continuous radiation monitoring on the ISS using a suite of instruments, the Radiation Environment Monitor, the Tissue Equivalent Proportional Counter, and the High-Energy Heavy Nuclei Detector, has produced the most comprehensive dataset on the low Earth orbit radiation environment ever assembled. Over 25 years of continuous monitoring across multiple solar cycles. The data reveals how the radiation environment varies with solar activity, how solar particle events send spikes of high-energy protons through the station, how the galactic cosmic ray background changes through the solar cycle, how the trapped radiation of the Van Allen belts contributes as the station passes through the South Atlantic anomaly, a region where the inner Van Allen belt dips unusually close to Earth's surface. This dataset directly informs the design of radiation shielding for the Lunar Gateway, the Artemis moon missions, crewed Mars vehicles, and deep space habitats. Without real operational data from 25 years of continuous monitoring, these designs would be based on models alone. The ISS has replaced guesswork with measurement. The radiation data from the ISS will protect every astronaut who ever travels beyond low Earth orbit. Number 3. Fluid physics. Why fuel tanks don't work the way you think in space. How liquids behave in the absence of gravity is not just scientifically interesting. It is an engineering problem with direct consequences for spacecraft design, propulsion systems, and life support. On Earth, gravity dominates fluid behavior. Liquids settle to the bottom of containers, bubbles rise. Convection drives heat transfer in fluids. All of spacecraft and plumbing engineering on Earth exploits these behaviors. In microgravity, none of this applies. Surface tension dominates instead of gravity. Liquids climb walls and cling to surfaces in complex shapes. Bubbles do not rise, they stay wherever they form and grow until they block flow. Two-phase flow, mixtures of liquid and gas moving through pipes, behaves in ways that are completely unpredictable from Earth-based models. This matters enormously for spacecraft design. Fuel tanks must deliver fuel to engines reliably in microgravity, but gravity-based fuel management designs used on Earth don't work in space. Cooling systems that rely on convection cannot function in microgravity. Life support systems that involve liquids must be completely redesigned. The ISS fluid physics experiments, conducted in the Fluids and Combustion Facility, have produced fundamental data on capillary flow, droplet dynamics, boiling heat transfer, and two-phase flow in microgravity. This data has directly improved the design of fuel management systems for current spacecraft and is essential for designing the propulsion systems of future deep space vehicles. Every time a spacecraft engine fires reliably in space, the fluid physics research done on the ISS has contributed to making that possible. Number 2. Lightning Imaging Sensor, the most complete map of lightning on Earth. The Lightning Imaging Sensor on the ISS has been operating since 2017. It detects lightning flashes across the entire surface of the Earth that falls within the ISS orbital coverage, approximately the region between 54 degrees north and 54 degrees south latitude. This covers the vast majority of Earth's populated land area and all of the tropical regions where lightning is most frequent and severe. The ISS orbital inclination of 51.6 degrees and its relatively low altitude produce a combination of coverage and resolution that no dedicated lightning monitoring satellite in polar or geostationary orbit can match. The sensor detects both cloud-to-ground and cloud-to-cloud lightning with millisecond timing precision. The resulting dataset is the most complete global lightning record ever assembled. Lightning frequency peaks in Central Africa, a fact that was theoretically predicted but has now been confirmed with the precision of the ISS sensor. Lightning activity correlates with surface temperature, atmospheric moisture, and convective activity in ways that are now being mapped globally for the first time. This data is used operationally. Aviation routing avoids severe thunderstorms using lightning data from the ISS sensor. Climate models use the global lightning distribution as a constraint. Atmospheric chemistry models use lightning as a source of nitrogen oxides that affect ozone chemistry. Wildfire risk assessment incorporates lightning strike frequency from the ISS dataset. Lightning, one of the most fundamental atmospheric phenomena on Earth, is being mapped more comprehensively than ever before by a sensor on a space station designed primarily for human spaceflight. Number 1. The ISS itself, the proof that the hardest things are possible. Here is the experiment that contains all the others. The International Space Station is the most complex structure ever assembled by human beings. 16 nations, 42 assembly missions over 13 years, from 1998 to 2011. 109 components, a pressurized volume larger than a 6-bedroom house, solar arrays spanning 73 meters, continuously inhabited since November 2000. As of May 2026, the ISS has been continuously occupied for 25 years and 6 months. No gap, no pause, no emergency evacuation that was not corrected. A quarter of a century of continuous human presence in space. The ISS itself is the experiment in whether humans can build, maintain, and operate a permanent outpost in the most hostile environment accessible to us, whether international cooperation at the scale required for a Mars mission is achievable, whether the engineering systems required for long-duration human spaceflight can be designed, built, and reliably operated for decades. The answer to all of these is yes. Qualified, messy, expensive, occasionally terrifying, but yes. The ISS has cost approximately $150 billion across its lifetime. That works out to roughly $6 billion per year. For context, the global film industry generates approximately $100 billion per year. Humanity spends 25 times more on movies than on maintaining a permanent human presence in space. What the ISS has returned for that investment is not just the experiments on this list. It is the knowledge infrastructure, the engineering knowledge, the operational knowledge, the medical knowledge, the materials knowledge that makes everything beyond it possible. The Moon, Mars, everything further. The ISS is not the destination. It is the proof of concept, and it is still working. 15 experiments only possible because of the space station, from twins separated by 400 kilometers to the coldest place in the known universe, from protein crystals that designed real medicines to fire that burns without light, from a dark matter detector in orbit to a thermometer predicting crop failures, from water recycling that will sustain Mars crews to plants completing their full life cycle in space, from radiation data protecting every future astronaut to the most complete lightning map Earth has ever had. The most expensive object ever built by humanity is running experiments that cannot happen anywhere else. Every result is paid for by the price of keeping humans alive in a place where nothing wants them to survive. Subscribe to Cosmic Hives. See you in the next one.